Okay, so if you guys want to get it a little heated, the last time you were on the show, Kiara, the big conversation was age gap relationships.
Yes.
Which you were critical of.
I knew I should have brought my notepad. Yep.
So let's talk a bit about that. So do you think it's wrong for a guy to date a younger adult woman? Let's say a 30-year-old dating a 20-year-old, for example.
No, I don't see anything wrong with it. I just find it, my thing was, okay, I'm not saying once they're a legal adult, that is her decision, right? That is ultimately her decision. It's not him grooming her or any of those sorts. She's a legal grown adult. I'm just saying I don't think it's fair to say there isn't a link with how men, as the older they get, they still like very young women. And my only point was, I know the stats start at 18, but I bet you if they started younger at 14, there'd be a lot of those grown men finding 14 to 18-year-old women peak attractiveness as well, especially like 16. I guarantee you would be actually 16 if that was a part of the stats instead of 18. Because 16 to 18, you're not getting much different. 18, she could still be in high school.
Remember, we're talking about adults.
That's the thing you keep saying is you're talking about adults, but that's not my point. So unless we want to go back to that, then maybe we shouldn't resurface
What age
this.
range bothers you? Like what's the issue with the age range?
So I'm gonna give you context because he's bringing it up from our last thing. The last two times I was on here.
Let me just clarify. I'm talking about adult relationships. You keep bringing up high school and all this shit. I suppose an 18-year-old could be in high school, but we're talking about...
He said 20 and 30. He said 20
No,
and 30.
but he
said
said 18 after. He said 18 after. He did. He said 18.
Well, I just said 18 now.
Yeah, no, you said after.
The first example I gave was 30 and 20.
Yes, I said that's fine.
I could even make
the first thing out of my mouth was that's fine. My thing is I kept going back to the data that you showed on the podcast is my point. When you showed the data that with women and men as they age, women tend to find men the same age as them attractive, while men, it stops at about 18 to 20. My whole point is, I don't care if you don't want to bring this up and go into this deep down part of it, but you did. So my point is, that stat started at 18, and I guarantee if those men knew they would not get in trouble or face any, punishment, they would say that 16 was their optimal prime most attractive. 18 to 16 is not that far.
Okay, but you're basically just derailing the conversation.
I'm not, because you brought it up.
No, but you're the conversation is men who are, say, a 30-year-old guy who wants to date a 20-year-old woman. And you always want to bring it to
Can I ask you a question?
The P-word stuff.
Because last time we debated it,
but it's irrelevant. Let's just, for the sake of a conversation.
How's it irrelevant if you're bringing up my last time on here? You can't just bring up bits
No,
and
but
pieces
you
of
were
what I
making
said.
but you were making the argument that 30 and 20 or 40 and 20, that's
I did not make that argument. I must have said 18 because I know.
I have a question. Do you feel the same way about women? Because like Demi Moore dated somebody really young, nobody batted an eye. Jada Pinkett Smith dated somebody 20 years younger than her. Nobody gave a fuck.
I think it's disgusting.
So,
like even my ex-girlfriend, I started a huge thing in high school because my ex-girlfriend started dating her girlfriend when she was in 7th grade and her girlfriend was a senior in high school. I was like, that shit's fucking nasty.
So
I exposed the hell out of her girlfriend. I was like, you're trifling. I was like, if this was she was my ex-girlfriend's best friend, it was her older sister. I was like, if you would have been a boy, this would have been everywhere. This would have not have been cool. Everyone would have been on it. And I exposed it too. As soon as we got together and I found out about it, I was like, oh, she's out of her mind. Like, she's nasty. I don't think it's right if it's girl, boy, girl. And it's not because I'm sure there is certain situations and instances where there is 30-year-old or 40-year-old men in the same position as maybe a 21-year-old. But it will never sit right with me how a 40-plus-year-old man could fall in love or be romantically involved with somebody under the age of 21 for it to not be for some type of weird reason.
20?
Yes, I think a lot of things change at 21, personally. For the fact that, like I remember I was 20 and I started dating this guy for a little bit. He was 26. I felt like a whole child, and it was only 6 years difference because I couldn't even go to the bar with him if he wanted to. I couldn't go to the club with him if I wanted to. I couldn't go into the 21 drinking section. I couldn't go to concerts with him. I felt like his little daughter that I couldn't do shit. Like, I don't know. I'm not saying every
20 and
man who dates
26.
young is a pedophile. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying there is a weird connection between men who are 50 or 40 plus going after 18-year-olds, because usually you'll see the trend, they only go after 18-year-olds. It's not like, oh, he was dating all older women and then one 18-year-old swept him off his feet.
Just remind me, how old are you again?
22, probably 23.
You're 22.
23.
So what about like a guy in his 30s dating you?
I would be fine with that. Most men I'm attracted to.
But that's what we're talking. That's kind of what we're talking about.
I'm 23, not 18.
Okay,
You
let's
said
say
20 and 30.
Let's
though.
say 20.
20, even 20. I'm saying I just brought up my situation of, I don't know. I think a lot of things change after the legal drinking age and those things. I feel like you do grow a lot once you, at least for me, once I hit that point. And also now after the pandemic has happened, we have a lot of these 20-year-old adults who missed out on half of their high school and still have the mentality of high schoolers because they missed out on so much of it and are so behind, which I think adds a whole new tier into it.
Did you want to come in?
No, I just personally don't think that it's weird or nothing like that, man. I feel like people have preferences, and there's a lot of women out here who have preferences. Nobody bags on them, so I'm very big on double standards. I hate how women like constantly bag on men for things that women do as well.
Can you hide
know?
that? Hide that, man. Go ahead.
No, and I just feel like a lot of women, not you per se, but a lot of women have been through a lot of certain experiences, and then they categorize other women like that, or like even older women. They'll complain about men dating younger women, but they're the ones who are not wanted anymore. So they have a big mouth about that. But when they were younger, they were sucking dick from a 30-year-old and they were 18 years old. So like, I never see the reasoning for it, especially because if that girl's not complaining, she's not saying something, why should it matter to you? You know what I'm saying? So it's just an opinion.
I want to let everyone else come in on this. Do you have a take on age gap relationships? What do you think it's an issue? A 30-year-old guy dating a 20-year-old, for example.
I don't think there's an issue with that at all, honestly. Like she said, people have their preferences, so.
Personally, I don't think that legality equals morality, so I would find it a little bit strange if a 30-year-old is wanting to date a 20-year-old.
Turn the mic a little bit. It's a bit... You'd think it's strange for a 30-year-old to want to date a 20-year-old.
Yes.
Why?
Personally, because I feel that a 30-year-old might not have as much in common with a 20-year-old. Maybe this
sex.
Maybe this
sex is in common.
Why does a 30-year-old want a 20-year-old? Maybe because she's more impressionable. Maybe because she's more vulnerable. I mean.
Well, that's kind of even what Andrew Tate says is sometimes why he wants younger women is because she is more impressionable and will listen to him easier than a woman who's been with multiple men. He actually admits that multiple times.
That is. I have a question. I don't think that's a safe connection for a 20-year-old and a 30-year-old.
So, I mean, there's a lot of little pieces I could jump off on there, but I'll respond really quick. I know you want to go, and then I'll let you come in. So, you're saying that a 20-year-old is incapable of consenting to having sex with someone who's above a certain age, essentially.
No, I did not say that.
I mean, you're saying it's wrong. Like, so
I'm saying that somebody who is hella older, like you're saying a 30-year-old and a 20-year-old, right?
Sure, 30 and 20.
The 30-year-old is going to have the control in the relationship. They're going to have the upper hand. They're older. They're going to have more influence.
Maybe.
This 20-year-old is going to be more vulnerable, not as strong. Her freaking prefrontal cortex isn't even developed yet. Like,
you know what? I agree. In fact, I think we should raise the voting age to 25. So, I mean, I don't know if any of you vote Democrat, but that would probably impact you guys quite a bit.
And there's been many women, like you brought up, women who are like hella older now, and they're judging women who are younger.
Okay, let me ask you a question. Okay, go ahead, continue.
Who are judging younger women for doing those things. Well, Brittany Renner came on TikTok or whatever, and she said, you know what? At the time, I thought I was in my hot girl era. I was like doing what men do, like hooking up, taking control of my life. And she says, you know what? I was letting very like older men take advantage of me, but I thought that because I was an adult and I could make my own decisions, I was so grown, but I really wasn't. You know?
Mean, zero accountability. But let me just do one quick, and then I'll have you come back in. So, do you think we should raise the age for when women can start an OnlyFans? So women,
Yes.
I mean,
I would want to raise it.
25 years old.
21 for me personally.
I say
20, 25 years old.
21.
Oh, so okay, so then we should also bump the voting age for women too. Then
I think the difference though
What?
between like
Whoa.
That was a big jump.
We're
I
also
mean, if
saying
you're saying
hold on, pause.
at 18 you're legally an adult. You can, let's see, what can you do at 18? I mean, you can sign legally binding contracts that will indebt you for the rest of your life. You can join you can join the military. You can purchase a firearm. You can start doing porn. You can start. I mean, there's a whole bunch of other stuff.
We're saying raise the works for OnlyFans, strippers, sex workers in general to 21. That's not just women too. Men are sex workers too. So it'll be raising for them too. So they would have to wait till 21 too with your point there. So I don't get how that makes any sense.
But this argument is always framed from the point of view of older men prefer to date younger women.
That's not what we're
older
talking about right now.
women
You just asked us a new question about
generally-
OnlyFans.
What's that?
You just asked us a different question right now about OnlyFans, and we're saying to
But
raise
she's
the
talking
age.
about the prefrontal cortex and that they're not able to.
Yeah, I have a big problem with like, I just don't really like any of the arguments that come from the standpoint of like women who are 20, because I'm 21, like I'm like basically that age right now, saying that women that age have something wrong with their brains, that they can't make proper
She
decisions.
never
I didn't
said
say
that.
Yeah, well, okay, that they're not like developed enough, that I'm not developed enough to make.
She's saying the same
it
thing.
is,
about
bio-
acting
decisions
it is
about
a
how to choose my
it is
body,
a
like,
biological fact that your prefrontal cortex is not developed until you're like 26.
And she only said
and
that
the
'cause he said
prefrontal
26
cortex
man.
is the part of your brain that is important in making decisions.
I'm a psych major, so I know, but thank
I
you
have
for
a question.
clarifying.
Well, you didn't-
I
Obviously,
would
you don't
just
seem
say,
like it.
Ooh, I have a question.
Whoa.
But for like a lot of you guys speaking on these type of things, not every woman is the same. Like everybody grew up
No.
very different. Like I know when I was
I was
22
wanting
years
to
old,
make that
I grew up
I
in a
said
very
that
different
already.
lifestyle with my grandparents and stuff. So like I never was ran through. I never started sleeping around with guys. I had like a good
You seem
upbringing.
really traumatized
But
with that.
this thing that you said before about Andrew Tate, something about girls want to listen to him. What's wrong with that? How come a man can't have a woman who listens to him? Why would he want to be with somebody who's not cooperative, doesn't listen to him? You said that before, something about him wanting just a girl who listens, something along those
Oh,
lines.
I already mentioned before, I think men want a submissive woman, and that's totally fine. I never said that. I brought it up because he just said, I forgot exactly what he said, but he said something about how, men don't care about, like, he stated something saying the opposite of what Andrew Tate said in that statement about how he does like women who are younger because they've been through less men and whatever, and he was making some comment about how they wouldn't or something, and I was like, no, because that's literally what he said in the one we review here. That was my only point with that. I do believe if a man wants a submissive woman, hey, go for it. I have no problem also being submissive in a marriage myself, but it's a marriage, not a relationship, is my only thing with that.
I mean, we're bringing it back to what Andrew Tate said. I mean, better looking, lower body count, less baggage, more fertile.
I see nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I
It's a
mean, if
preference.
that's
It's a
what you
preference.
prefer, that's what you prefer. And there's other men who would prefer maybe an older woman or a woman who does have a ton of experience, and that's okay too.
My only point, because he brought this up from the last podcast, which you guys weren't present, so I feel like it was very unfair to even go back to this, because now you guys are going to debate off of things without knowing the full thing. My thing was, I was never saying that, because I know there's people are different. There might be some 20-year-olds out there that are in the exact same place as a bum-ass 30-year-old or something. I don't know. Everyone's different. I was just saying, I think, and we keep getting away from it because he doesn't want this podcast to be about this. So that's why my point's not getting across. I'm just saying it's wrong to not say that there is a link between men who like very young women who would, if they could, go after women underneath the legal age. That was my point from the last
But
podcast.
if they're that bad of men, why don't they just go for the younger women then?
They typically do, but it's because he brought up a data point that started at 18, and I was saying if it could go to 16, it would, but none of you guys saw that data point.
Is that how you view men though? That's like
How
a
do you
really
mean how I
harsh
view
thing.
men?
Yeah, look what you just said. Repeat what you just said all over again. That's how you view men. That you think that if they could, they date younger, right? That's not
not
a good thing to say at all.
I said some men, yes, I do believe some men. You're trying to say there's not men out here that wouldn't? But I'm saying
course
from
there
the
are
data.
some men who are P words, and there are some men that
Yeah.
are predators. But most men, and by the way, most men do prefer, or they do find younger women, keyword women, more physically attractive.
But that's not the sole reason they want to be with them.
What's the reason then? Because
There's other reasons, sure.
Yeah,
Because they could manipulate it.
they can manipulate them.
That's
I feel like
That's not
we're
always
getting
the
nowhere
case,
with this
though.
fucking
It's
point.
not.
That's like a big word to use.
Also-
Like, imagine if I said that about you, like you manipulate a whole bunch of people. That's not true. You know what I mean? Like,
Am
don't
I
know
a
you.
30-year-old
I know,
dating
but that's not all.
20
That's not all men,
20-year-olds?
though. That is not.
I'm not a
But
30.
that's
Not
a-
all
that's a
men.
preference.
Not all
That's a
men. We're
preference,
obviously not
though.
fucking
That's you,
saying
though. You
all
wanna
men.
date
Like,
older,
that's
and that's
common
okay. You're a
sense that
woman.
we're talking about a
There's
select
nothing
group of
wrong with
men.
that.
Like, no,
So why
everyone
can't a
person's
man
the
have a
same.
preference? I'm not seeing the big issue.
We're not saying they can't have a preference. We're saying it's
Men
weird when
can
their
have
preference might be
preferences.
based on something that's not just a preference. When it's based on something that's
It's weird because it's not your
Okay,
preference.
Brian
Wait.
is saying that the main
Jesus
reason
Christ.
why older men go for younger women is solely because they're attractive, better looking than older women.
Not solely. There's
Okay,
other reasons.
then that's one reason.
That's a big one.
Personally, I believe the other reasons why an older gentleman would want to go for a young girl that just turned 18, 19, 20 is because they can have more influence on her. They can manipulate her more easily. She's more vulnerable. More
Women-
so than a woman who is maybe 25, 26, 27, has had a lot of experience in relationships and experience with men.
Or we just don't want to date a woman who's been ran through and has a bunch of emotional
Is
trauma
every
and
woman that's over
baggage.
20 years old ran
No, but
through though?
the older you are, the more likelihood to have had a higher partner
Can
count.
That's
and to have more
men
baggage.
be ran through?
Men can't be ran through.
why.
No, they can't.
Why?
So how is this?
It's different. It's typically different.
Ran through is like loosening up, right?
Okay, can I say something about
Well,
this?
Can't loosen up
Can
a
I say something to you
man.
about this, actually? Hold on, please.
I mean,
Please
if you
let me
want,
respond. Please let me respond.
There's other holes.
So, what makes you, so you're saying ran through loose, right? What makes you, somebody who's been in a relationship the past 2 years, fucking who knows how much, versus me who's had intercourse 4 times this past year, wouldn't, just because it's the same dick, wouldn't yours be looser than mine on that logic, though? When it comes to relationships?
Only 4 times?
Yes.
Okay.
I've said
I'm
so much
sorry.
shit on this podcast. Why
I'm
would I
sorry.
start lying now, Brian? I've literally admitted to the fucking
I shouldn't shame you.
insane
I'm sorry.
shit on
I'm
here.
sorry. I won't shame
Like, lying's not something I do.
you. Okay. So, okay, you said dominance, right? They want to dominate the women. It's kind of funny, though, that women try to frame this as a criticism of men, like that men are bad for wanting to dominate when,
I would
when
also-
50 Shades of Grey is like one of the best-selling books of all time, and women want to be dominated in the bedroom. Hey, I'm down for some fucking gentle sex, but y'all want to be choked and all this fucking shit. Like, so on one hand, you want a man to be dominant, but you also criticize men for being
I
dominant?
do not want a man to dominate me. I would like a man to lead me. I would like a man to be respectful. I feel like domination is a term that's like implying that a man is superior and the woman is inferior, or whoever the partners are. Like, I would
Women-
not want a man to dominate me. No, I'd want us
You
to be
don't
on
like
the
to be
same
choked?
level. What?
You don't like to be choked in the bedroom?
Is being choked in the bedroom being dominated?
I mean,
yeah, I
wh-
think that's what he's like
Yeah.
trying. I think that's what he
BDSM,
meant by
bondage,
that.
domination, sadism, masochism.
No, I'm not into BDSM, but
So you're not into rough sex, like strictly gentle sex?
no, I wouldn't
Like-
say that.
That's fine. It's
I've
fine
been
if
choked.
you are.
I've had my hair pulled and stuff, but
and
a
you
man,
like that?
I could say yes. Yes, I do.
And that's dominating, right?
It is. It is dominating.
If it's
But okay, I mean, to kind of argue for you, dominance within the confines of the bedroom is different, can be different than from the relationship. So I don't want to
Okay, thank
unfairly
you.
argue against you. But so I don't get this, because you're trying to link guys who prefer to date younger women. You think and tell me if I'm getting this right, men who prefer younger women, if some of them, maybe even a good amount of them, if they could go lower, they would.
No comment. I'm
Okay.
over this topic.